All right, good noon, everyone. Happy Halloween, and welcome to our special meeting here on October 31st at noon, City Council chambers. Could we get the roll call, please?
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
Fantastic, and if we can also stand for the invocation, I'll ask for Councilmember Hamby to lead, please.
Gladly. Let's pray. Almighty God, we are grateful to you today for our many blessings that you bestow upon us. We ask that you would guide our proceedings here today, that we would lead the city with wisdom, and that you would protect our community, and especially those that are serving our community. We thank you for each employee that we have, and we thank you for our police and firefighters, and we ask that you would bless our nation as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And Councilmember Couchman, if you could lead us in the pledge.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Couchman, and thank you, Councilmember Hamby.
You're welcome.
And we'll move here to our approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll move to our public appearances and comments. This is not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any items not appearing on the agenda, and that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone, so please state your name for the record. You're not allowed to make personal attacks or on individuals or comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Would anyone like to come up and make a public comment? Yes, sir. Please come on up.
Good morning, Mayor and fellow council members, members of the audience. My name is George Wetchen. I'm from here in Brawley, California. I am a member of the United States Census Bureau, and I'm just here to let everybody know that the 2020 census is on its way. And as a part of that, the Census Bureau is currently recruiting census takers. I had a meeting this morning with City Manager Moore, and we discussed some courses of action to be taken. I was glad to hear that the city of Brawley is being very proactive as far as the census count. To be very brief, the census is very important for the country in that, and the county, that it takes an accurate count of the citizens that live here, the residents here. The money is then, grant money and federal money can be equally parted out to different parts of the state. And of course, the number of people here in the state will get equal representation in Congress for that. But another thing I'd like to point out is for each person that does not get counted and accounted for is a $2,000 loss per year for the county. And you multiply that by 10 years, because the census takes place every 10 years, then that's quite a significant amount of money. So what I'm doing, I'm a recruiting assistant with the Census Bureau, and I'm here with a team. We have a local team here in the valley, and we're hitting all the cities and areas trying to recruit people to be census takers. So once the census officially kicks off April 1st, we will have them to follow up on persons that did not respond back to the census or couldn't. We will get them and try to account for every person, every resident here in the Imperial Valley. So I would just like to let you know that we'll be around in the valley. We'll be here in Brawley. Like I said, Brawley's being very proactive about it, and we may see us in banners, and we'll be passing out flyers and different things to get the word out for the census that is upcoming. So I just want to let you know that, and thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll take them. If not.
Super. Any questions from council?
No question.
Then,
All right.
yep, looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
important
much.
topic. Super. Any other public appearances or comments? Very good. Seeing none, we'll move to our next item on the agenda, item 2, which is the consent agenda. These items are approved in one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items to be considered separately or at a time determined by the mayor. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the consent.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll move to our regular business items. First item will be 3A. This will be discussion and potential action to adopt the city resolution number 2019 resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, accepting the audited financial statements for the City of Brawley for fiscal year end June 30th, 2018. And there's all of the backup material from the audit on pages 47 through 132. And I believe we might get an overview or a presentation from our finance director.
Sorry, throwing everything around here.
Mayor, fellow council members, I was going to say before us this evening, but before us this afternoon, for your review are the audited financial statements for the City of Brawley for the fiscal year June 30th, 2018. It's been a long process to get to this point, but we are here. I'd like to take the opportunity to mention, point out, I guess, that the staff, the finance staff, especially Tony Godinez, the assistant finance director, has done a lot of work to get to this point. A lot of detailed schedules and back and forth with the auditors. Tony was the main lead on point of contact with the auditors, and him and his staff had put a lot of work, and I think it should be noted that to get to this point was. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
So what we have here is the opinion provided is unmodified. That's the highest opinion of the auditors can give on financial statements, and the wording is in there, and it's also in the documents. With us today, we have the partner of Ide Bailey. That is the partner for the audit. I believe he can, if he would come up here and provide an overview of the audit and the process and any potential findings.
Good afternoon. All right, there are two documents that are included in your packet. One is included in the financial statements is the independent auditor's report. And then the second document is the required communication with governance letter. So I'll go through each of those briefly, starting with the independent auditor's report, which is included on page 51 of your packet. This is the audit deliverable for the annual financial statements.
Pages are messed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give us just 1 second, would you please? I think we've got some missing pages on there.
Alma, you've reproduced?
Uh-huh. After page, let me see.
Yes, we have all of those.
Yeah,
We
we're
have
just
all of
missing
those.
50.
But
Maybe
we have the
we'll
letter,
do
this
one.
is one of the letters, right?
The
that
letters,
your top
the letters
picture.
way in the back. Let
This
me
is
see.
one of them.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so if you see the letter on the lower right-hand side, it says page 1.
Yes. It's the letter towards the end.
Oh, I see. What is,
Did you find that?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It's actually 128, numbered 128 in the
yeah,
packet.
Yes.
at the very end.
So pull that letter and then you're,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's.
Yes.
Their letters.
Okay, so we've all got that letter. Okay.
Page 120. 128,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
A little order here, but
that's fine.
we'll move through it. All right, sorry about that.
All right, so this is the independent auditor's report on the annual financial statements. Couple things to point out. This is the June 30th, 2018 set of financial statements. Under the caption, management's responsibility for the financial statements. These are management's financial statements. They're not the auditor's financial statements. They are the city's and management's financial statements. Under auditor's responsibility, our role, our responsibility is to opine on certain components of those financial statements. We did perform our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards. An audit includes sampling. It provides reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. So it's important to note that. On the second page, or the following page, there's the caption opinions, and the language indicative, or the language there is indicative of a clean audit opinion and unmodified audit opinion. Moving down the page, there's the adoption of a new accounting standard. The city implemented the accounting standard related to its retiree health benefits plan. in the current year, and that changed the comparability of the statements from one year to the next. So that is identified there. The next caption under restatement, the city performed an analysis, and based on the results of that analysis, changed the certain components of the beginning equity as of the July 1st, 2017 equity. As those were changed, that's identified here in the auditor's opinion. That's also included in footnote number 14 of the financial statements, and the detail is included there. Under other matters, there's the caption required supplementary information. There are certain pension schedules, other post-employment benefit schedules, and budget comparison schedules that are included in this report, and those are required supplementary information. Our role as independent auditors on those schedules is that those are outside the scope of the audit. So we read them for consistency, but we do not opine on those schedules. And then on the next page, at the top, management has omitted the MD&A from the financial statements, and our opinion is not modified with respect to that. Under other information, there's additional information, supplementary information, and those are the combining schedules. Those are identified there. Our opinion with those combining schedules is an unmodified opinion, that they're fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the basic financial statements as a whole. Okay, and then at the very bottom there's a reference to other reporting required by government auditing standards. That is a reference to the internal control and compliance report. That report will be included under the single audit cover when that comes to you. But that's not included in this packet. All right. Jumping all the way over, the page number that I've got, that you guys may have a separate one, but the page number I have is page 128 in the packet. And this is the required communication with governance letter. It's a 3-page letter. It's got the Ide Bailey logo on the top.
We're missing that.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're a little,
It's this one.
at least
Yeah.
my packet is a little
Out of
scattered
order.
out, so.
Yeah. The 128 has at
128
the
is
top
the letter.
E. Bailey.
Yeah, we got that.
We've got that
Okay.
one.
The first one we did
I
not
think that's what
have.
he's referring
It's
to.
right here, no. It's,
I think he was on a different one.
it's right here.
I
This
guess.
significant,
Yeah.
Everybody was
this one
lost.
right here under 76.
We do have that
This
one.
one right here?
That's the one that says page number 1 on the side.
Yes,
yes,
So
that's it.
We didn't have that first letter that you were going
Oh,
through.
got it, okay.
Yeah,
Anyway, carrying on.
sorry for the distraction. Just-
He said he was on number 1, so it's 128.
All right.
Can you go make a complete copy with the right page numbers so I have them? I don't think your packet's right.
I don't know where you're at now.
What page?
So this letter should have the date of October 29th,
Okay, let me
2019 at the very top.
Yeah, we have
left.
it. We have it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So
Okay.
this
I
is,
think
this
we
is
have it.
the required communications letter
Right
with
here.
governance.
Yeah, around there.
What this letter provides is the summary results of the financial statement audit process and the key components of those results for your consideration. It starts at the top with our responsibility in relation to the financial statements. And again, these financial statements are management's financial statements, and our role as independent auditors is to opine on certain aspects of those financial statements. Under the 4th paragraph there's another reference to that internal control and compliance report and the identification of internal control deficiencies. So that is identified there. As a result of the audit, there were deficiencies identified. It's important to note that for a financial statement audit, we consider internal control to develop further audit procedures, and to the extent that deficiencies in that internal control are identified, we are required to report those out. But we do not opine on the internal control structure. We do report out internal controls that are identified. But there is no opinion on the financial statements related to internal control. Under the caption at the bottom, plan, scope, and timing of the audit was delayed to allow the city to reconcile certain accounts, including pension, OPEB, and certain other cash accounts. So that's identified here. To the extent that we have delays in the audit, we're required to report those out, and this is where we are reporting those out. At the top of the next page, we are independent, so the first caption is clarifying that we are independent from the city. We are not part of the internal control of the city. We are in fact independent. Under significant accounting policies, there is a reference to the newly implemented accounting standard, GASB 75, and again, that relates to the retiree health benefits plan. The implementation of that standard required measuring the liability associated with the retiree health plan as of the end of the period, and looking at that also as of the beginning of the period. And the measurement as of the beginning of the period was pushed through the report as a restatement to beginning equity. And that's all in accordance with the standard. Under significant accounting estimates, there are a couple of things identified. The liabilities related to the net pension liabilities and the measurement of the liabilities related to the post-employment benefit plan are based on significant estimates. Under financial statement disclosures, there is a disclosure of the pension plan in note 11 in the financial statements and the OPEB plan, the retiree health plan, in note 12 of the financial statements. Those are key disclosures that are included in the financial statements. So we wanted to point those out. Additionally, at the top of the next page, note 14 describes the detail of the restatement based on a couple of things. First, the implementation of the retiree health benefits plan standards, so the restatement is included there, but also the city performed an analysis of certain balance sheet accounts, certain receivables and payables, and based on the results of their analysis, restated the opening balance to certain funds. And so all of that detail is included in note 14, and that makes note 14 a key disclosure included in the financial statements. Under the caption uncorrected and corrected misstatements, the first set of those items have all been corrected and are reflected in the finalized financial statements that you have in front of you. So all of those items are reflected in those balances. The second set are uncorrected misstatements. These are immaterial items that were identified, and management deemed those immaterial. We concurred with management's assertion, and those are not reflected. Nonetheless, we are required to report those out as uncorrected misstatements. You can see at the bottom of the page the effect of those uncorrected misstatements is approximately $30,000 across all those reporting units. On the next page, disagreements with management. If we had disagreements, we would be required to report those out. We did not have any disagreements with management as we went through the process. We did ask management to provide certain representations to us, which they did, dated October 29th, 2019. The section on noncompliance with laws and regulations, that is a reference to certain funds at June 30th had deficit cash positions in the city pool. And for financial reporting purposes, the city can't show negative amounts on those funds' balance sheets. They have to zero those out. And in order to do so, there was a short-term interfund payable receivable between those funds. And the fund that was, the reported fund that was loaning the money had restricted resources included in it. And so the loaning of the money didn't meet the requirements for the restriction. And so that's being reported out here, that there was a short-term financial reporting entry necessary on those funds. And then on the next page of that report, under modification of the auditor's report, this is a reference to the two emphasis of matters paragraphs. One was for the implementation of the new accounting standard, And then the second was for the city's analysis and restatement of beginning equity in those reporting units in Note 14. Both of those have been pulled out as an emphasis of matter within the auditor's opinion, so we did want to report that out in this letter as well. I'd be happy to field any questions that you had as it relates to the audit.
Questions, comments from council?
In regards to the deficiencies in the internal controls, that's in a report. Is that something that we have in this, or that's forthcoming?
Yeah, that's forthcoming. That will be included under the single audit cover.
Okay.
So the information is included, but the report itself will be under a separate cover that you do not have in this packet.
I don't have any questions.
No other? All right. Well, I not only appreciate the overview, but I think for council's benefit, more of our our understanding and moving forward is going to be still moving forward with our budget. So it certainly helps. This is a big milestone we've been waiting for. So appreciate the mammoth effort. Sounds like Tony, but Tyler as well, the entire department, and I think the notes, everything's presented very succinctly. So. Unless there's any other questions or comments from council, we will move forward. I think our big step here is to go ahead and move forward with a motion and pass these audited financials as presented. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the item.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your help.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item will be item 3B, discussion of potential action for the resolution of the City of Brawley, California, in support of declaration of a local emergency at the Salton Sea by the County of Imperial. Backup material, pages 133 and 134. Looks like we have our District 4 County Board of Supervisor and current Chairman, Ryan Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. I'm here to present or answer any questions. The emergency declaration was declared a week ago Tuesday, and the rationale is that the sea is receding faster than any of the planning that's occurring in California and Sacramento. So I don't know if you've been out there recently, but projects are not happening. The state produced the Salton Sea Management Program. No activity on the ground has occurred, and the projects are lingering. There was a stakeholders meeting earlier this month, or we're still in October, where the timetables had been pushed back again on all the projects. So we believe it is an emergency. It's a chronic issue. We are 2001, we're 17, 18 years past the formation of transferring water out of this valley and the 2003 agreement. There were lots of promises, and we're not seeing the action. So $280.5 million has been appropriated towards Salton Sea, and to date, all that money has been spent on overhead and consultants. Not all of it, only $20 million or so.
Okay. Questions from council?
I guess in general, I think a lot of people have the same question, because we've seen in the news, as an example, I think it was 2 years ago, they allocated the 80.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we've yet to see any of that money, is that correct? Or they've spent part of it, or?
So of the 280 million, 0.5, they've spent almost 20 million on staff and consultants. They have taken 2 permitted projects that were already permitted, and they have redesigned them in Sacramento. So the Red Hill Bay project, for instance, was originally a gravity-fed Alamo River water. They've re-engineered it to be a blend between salt and seawater and Alamo River water. And they have, in their project schedule they shared with us earlier this month, it won't be completed until December of 2020. But they have to put a barge out into the Salton Sea to be able to bring Salton Sea water into Red Hill Bay. The areas that they're imagining where this barge is going to go are already drying, and they haven't even procured the barge, and there's an 18-month lead time. So I do not believe that they will complete their task by December of 2020. And additionally, we had a conversation with Cali OES yesterday, Office of Emergency Services. We made resource requests. We are asking that we put Alamo water onto the Red Hill Bay, and we have agreement with Sunny Bono Wildlife Refuge to do that. We're also talking about SCH1, which used to be filled with water. IID did that project for $34,000 back in 2012. And the state currently has a price tag of $57,000 an acre. And that's about 600 acres, that SCH1. We've also did resource requests for bull plows to do surface roughening out by Red Hill Bay and also by Mullet Island. We've made a request for drilling at Tule Wash for water to put vegetation on the playa. And we've also asked for an epidemiologist from either the California Department of Public Health, UC Riverside, another academic institution with a medicine school, to be able to do a sampling survey more detailed with medical record on the people that live in the North End. And we're also asking for toxicological monitors and core sampling for the playa. So if this were to be approved, the state of California would be able to get back to neutral on the acreage coverage that they were required to do, which is 2,200, will be added another, I think, 1,400 acres for next year. If what we've, working with IID, we've identified areas where equipment can go out on the ground right now and start doing things. And if they accept our declaration, then in 4 or 5 months, all that acreage that they should have already addressed would be covered or in mitigation.
Absolutely. And there are questions? Ryan, just for also clarification, mentioning the idea, pretty much I know you're taking the time and the effort to get out and make sure we get this support, in essence, to move forward. Are all stakeholders, primarily IID, they're on board or they're pushing as well?
So IID Chairman or President Ortega was with us on the conference call for OES, and IID's been assisting us. We've been identifying equipment. They've been identifying locations. They will take an action on their next meeting on Tuesday in support of the declaration.
Understand how important that is. Absolutely. Any questions, comments?
The only thing I did see that there was a change in the Salton Sea Authority director. I'm not sure if that was his title. There's a change in the leadership. Will that have a positive impact as far as you know, or what impact should that have?
The Assistant Secretary for Salton Sea Policy with Natural Resources is Mr. Wilcox is no longer as of tomorrow, I believe. And Mr. Arturo Delgado is now the Assistant Secretary. We have seen changes of faces. We had Secretary Laird in Natural Resources, and now we have Secretary Crowfoot. I believe that Mr. Crowfoot has his heart in the right place, but and he's only been there since March. But there's a long history of broken promises, and this is a chronic issue that is getting to be very serious. If you go out there, you take a look at it, this is not something that's going to go away.
Okay.
All right. Moving forward, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, our next item, we'll move on to the discussion and potential action to adopt city Council Resolution Number 2019. This is a resolution for the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, approving a vehicle lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management as a qualified bid through Sourcewell, formerly the National Joint Powers Alliance, a cooperative purchasing program. And looks like we'll have a presentation from our finance director. And I believe there's a PowerPoint. I'm not sure that might go with this as well.
There is.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon again, Mayor, fellow council members. Before you today is, for your consideration, is the resolution to approve a vehicle lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents on behalf of the city. For several months, staff has been working with Enterprise Fleet Management to determine the feasibility of the city to enter a vehicle lease program as well as a maintenance program. There's been, I believe, 2 presentations or reports to the council the past few months on the process of that and the areas of consideration that were considered and all the details. Matter of fact, Greg Murphy is here. He came in and gave a presentation in one of the council meetings. Excuse me. As the council is aware, our vehicle fleet is aged. It's expensive to purchase equipment, vehicles, etc. This is an opportunity to leverage our available resources into a leasing program, which in turn will allow us to improve the fuel efficiency, safety of the vehicles, reduce maintenance costs, among other things there. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. The Fleet Maintenance Division has historically operated at a loss. The average annually about $187,000 over the last 4 or 5 years. That was a negative, $187,000. In June of 19, the fleet maintenance supervisor had retired. Since that time, Street and Utilities maintenance supervisor has overseen the fleet oversight responsibilities for that department. In the capital budget, proposed capital budget, I should say, draft for this next year, there are 7 non-public safety vehicles to be purchased for about $210,000 and 2 police vehicles for a total of $93,000. By using the lease program, we could, like I said before, we can leverage those amount of dollars, where annually it would be about $42,000 to $49,000 aggregate per year for the non-public safety, and anywhere from $19,000 to $23,000 aggregate per year for the police vehicles, as opposed to the $300,000 of cash that would require if we were to purchase those vehicles. We have, at this point, maybe I can turn it over to Greg or Rosanna if you want to add to anything there.
I think you've done a great job with the overview. We do have a brief presentation for the council and community today, if you'd like. Mr. Murphy is here on behalf of Enterprise, and he can walk through some less than 10 slides, just a recap of the overall approach and what is proposed for potential action this afternoon.
Yeah, I think a quick recap will be nice, and obviously it's included in our council packet as well, so I can see, well, maybe sharing the highlights, and I think some of it you've already shared, Tyler, with what the benefits are going to be.
So good afternoon, everybody, and happy Halloween.
Yeah.
As you recall, I was out here a couple months ago, so like Rosanna said, I'm going to make this is actually a very high-level presentation, but I'll go through this extremely quickly to make sure we be respectful of your time. Oh gosh, what button do I hit here?
Next.
How's that?
Yes.
There you go.
So these are just some references of other cities that we work with. This is a very simple chart of what we're trying to accomplish with all of our clients, and it's just really helping you find that sweet spot, we call it, when you're managing a fleet of vehicles. And so that orange line is a depreciation line. I think we all know when you drive a vehicle off the lot, that's the most expensive day of a vehicle's life. And then the maintenance is kind of the opposite. The longer you hang on to a vehicle, the more the maintenance is going to cost you. And then fuel, there's a slight degradation in fuel over time. And this is really where enterprise is able to bring a lot of value to government. And what this shows is your buying power compared to the rest of the world out there. So when you compare yourself to contractors or individuals that are purchasing vehicles, they may pay $37,000 for this truck when you're paying $24,000 for it. And when you couple that with, sorry, I got this fancy slide that's coming in stages. When you couple that with your low mileage patterns, you've got a real opportunity here to manage that depreciation line. And because your mileage patterns are so low, you're confined to your city limits with that buying power. In a lot of cases, even a year or two down the road, your vehicles might be worth more in the resale market than you actually paid for them. And I think I shared some examples that we did with Calexico recently. So the recommendation is to utilize the municipal lease, which we went through last time. We put together a 10-year analysis for your city that showed that there was a pretty significant savings by taking advantage of this lease. And again, it's just combining your buying power along with the resale values. So the benefit of this lease for cities is that you're truly paying for what portion that you're using for the vehicle. This button doesn't work very well. And I'm stuck.
Alma, can you please just
Here we
sit
go.
down
All
there?
right, I'm going to use a mouse. Operating expenses, one of the things that we were also looking at for your city is to assist with the maintenance. On new vehicles, there's a full maintenance program, which I know is highlighted in your draft report. And then maintenance management is a nice solution for managing the existing fleet. That's a program through Sourcewell, which is $6 per month. Gives you all of our software and the shop network, as well as ASC certified technicians that will make those decisions on your repairs up to a point. And then safety, this is something that obviously resonates well with cities. And these are just milestones that have occurred over the last 12 years or so in terms of safety. And when we analyzed your fleet, there's obviously a fair amount of vehicles that predate this 2007. And what these are is where the federal government actually stepped in and made the manufacturers, they forced them to put these things in all vehicles that were produced from that point going forward. So you can see in 2007, you had anti-lock brakes and side airbags that became standard. In 2012, electronic stability control, and then those other bullet points are the future of some things that the industry is talking about. Part of our value proposition is just our resources. I think initially, if this is approved, our goal would be to upload your entire fleet into our website so that you would have a one-stop shop for all your staff where they can view various things that are happening within the fleet. And then there's also a free mobile app that can be used by the drivers. There's also some features for pool vehicles where you can quote-unquote check in and check out of vehicles. So if you're trying to manage a pool fleet, this works out well for that as well. And then one of the last things I wanted to talk about is just our network that we have. We're really piggybacking off of the infrastructure of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And you can see in the valley here, we have a total of 27 maintenance and repair facilities that are already part of our network. One of the things that I've been doing since our last meeting was looking to get a little more of a robust network here in Brawley. We only had 2 that were actually in the city of Brawley. So here's a quick update on where we've come since then. And so I'm happy to report that we've set up 3 other shops. One of the shops, Right Night, is still reviewing our paperwork. He had some questions. There were some conversations that I was copied on last week, so I think he's getting close. And then Desert RV is actually set up in our system, but we're still awaiting his W-9. And after that, we'll be done. And I think that's all I had. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions from council?
Is there, I guess as in our position, we have to ask, is there a downside to going with the fleet management?
I can answer that. I'm just kidding.
So,
Not the right person.
throughout the city's history, we've kind of swung the pendulum a number of times from having in-house operations to outsourced. One of the great advantages of in-house is the on-demand request for service. And that clearly comes at a cost. I mean, you see that we're operating at a loss annually, and understanding how those trade-offs would be in play to outsource, I think is really important, that a change in course, like what we're proposing today, we're doing it with our eyes open. It's difficult to accomplish having on-demand, 24/7, 365 service compared to orderly, scheduled, typically during normal business hour service. So it is going to require a change in expectation for our staff, in that the immediate turnarounds that are desired won't be accomplished. It'll be during, as much as possible, regular work weeks. So as events occur outside of normal business hours, 8 to 5, 7 to 6 windows, we'll be towing vehicles, storing, and then addressing those repair needs the next business day. So clearly trade-offs. Over time, we'll be able to determine what the actual final savings. Will be coming back to the council with intervals of reports to explain where we stand at various markers that make sense. I do want to also note, I don't think it was emphasized too much yet, that there is a need to think about the staffing for interface with enterprise, because the type of activity that's going to be required and decision-making internal to the organization, that focus on having a single individual that the outside party can interface with. It's a different set of skills that we're going to be seeking in that role. It's more of an analyst type of need. And so you'll see also included as an attachment to the report a job description for a management analyst. That particular role will be formally considered in the budget that comes to the city council here in the very near future. That person will not only be responsible for oversight of this particular function, but a number of contract performance measures in other aspects of the city. So it's looking to optimize some of the outsourced functions that have been part of the city's way of doing business historically. So some of those additional responsibilities would include, for instance, serving as the hub for any street sweeping related activities and trash and recycling related needs. As it stands, the Public Works Department basically is the hub for all things, and City Manager's Office is spillover for any of those topics. So this would be a chance, and it's really a function of complaint-driven activity, where, if you have a resource assigned to performance indicators, there's a lot more focus on getting the most out of those contract arrangements. And being proactive.
How quickly would there be a changeover in fleet when it comes to, eliminating the older vehicles and bringing in new ones? How long does that take? I think in the past you've told us that if a vehicle is less than 5 years old, they will stay on the fleet, and then the ones that are older than that will be.
Yeah, every city is unique. Normally what happens is we'll come in and make a recommendation. At the very minimum, it would be 20% of the fleet to get started, because normally what happens with municipalities, or cities in particular, we put them on a 5-year lease. So it would potentially take you 5 years to be fully on this program. But in terms of the maintenance, it's 3 weeks, and we can have everything on our maintenance program for $6 to be able to start managing that piece.
But to kind of step back a little bit, even bigger picture than that, the driver as it exists every budget cycle, is what are the resources available to engage in replacement strategies. So right now on the books, the city has, as part of our budget workshop process, a certain number of vehicles that the divisions and departments have come forward and said, we really need these units to function. We've tried our best to slow those efforts in light of the solution that we were exploring, to be sure that as we roll out, which our intention is January 2020, when we roll out, we can actually initiate the process for all those vehicles that we have pent-up requests for at this juncture. So it wouldn't be a wholesale, we're starting year one, replacing all vehicles. It'll be a function of how much money do we have available each fiscal year to devote to the vehicle needs. And one of the observations you may recall that Mr. Murphy shared in a prior presentation, we've been extremely frugal about our vehicle purchases. We have a lot of longevity when in those vehicles because they're so precious, but we do, every single one of them is in use. We don't have excess. I'd love to get to a point for the city that the notion of a pool vehicle is out there. You might recall when we brought on the code enforcement worker, we actually had to temporarily borrow the one floater that's in Public Works. So we're hoping to do some better asset management on that front, and be lean enough that we're not wasting, but not so lean that we can't function.
Is there a number that you have in mind as to initially what either a savings potential or extra cost potential will be in initiating the program?
What we can tell you at this juncture with certainty is that the proposed changes could result in annual savings of $576 a year. The fully burdened cost for a management analyst, we're estimating at $86,257. Moving out of capital purchases to lease arrangements, we're greatly reducing the annual expenses because we're not purchasing an item up front. So we are anticipating the $303,700 across all funds that we planned for vehicle acquisition would be reduced down to something like $48,000 to $60,000. So we're freeing up dollars to do different things, more optimally perform. We do expect that there will be increased fuel efficiency and decreased maintenance costs as we have more regular and consistent management of the assets.
Well, I think it might be understated, but to Tyler's department, it's much more predictable, and for budget and forecasting of what these costs are, because many times any kind of fleet program that's really not under a cohesive program, it's never what you think, constant surprises, and I just know that from the aviation world, and so it's predictability. I think for budgeting and the further along we get into the program, so I think the benefits certainly outweigh what might be the risks.
But I think the convenience factor is definitely going to be something different. It does require a change in staff appetite for being patient. And for our larger equipment, they're going to be handled through the program and monitored and tracked, but their repair needs are pretty distinct from a regular passenger vehicle. So we know
which they are anyways,
right?
Yeah. So.
Excuse me, but it really, with the apps and if the analyst is watching over the fleet, they're going to be notified of when things need to be scheduled for maintenance and things like that. So I think over time, probably very quickly, it'll be much easier to track and send things out for maintenance and things like that. So I expect that to minimize the impact to use of the vehicle. So it's good.
And this is also merged with the WEX program that we had brought to you before. That's going to be
moved over into enterprise where we're still gonna have the exact real-time tracking and et cetera on the fuel usage and controls.
Yeah.
So that's part of that too.
And we can see cost
Yeah.
right away, you know,
Right.
what it's really truly costing, so, I love it.
And based on what you said about staff being used to getting immediate service, and we're paying staff overtime to take care of vehicles as emergencies, or were they scheduled, or?
We typically do, and we also have, because we've been staffed in the fleet division to support other departments, fleet personnel have been involved in driving the vehicles to locations to get repair. Let's say, for instance, our police vehicles, because they're newer, we have had warranty work performed on those vehicles at the Ford dealership. And so instead of a police officer being taken out of patrol, the fleet division would be the driver. And, you know, you might take two people out of circulation to get to Ford and bring the person back that was driving and dropping the vehicle. Now those types of burdens are going to be carried by departments,
Okay.
which is not as convenient as being able to call and get someone to come and drive your vehicle and get back into
But
to
we
the
should
city
see some
operations.
substantial savings, though, as a result of that,
I don't
I
know.
would think.
Using your toes.
I have one small comment on that. On the initial round of phone calls with the local shops here in Brawley, I was the one to make those phone calls, and they're hungry for your business. That you have a large fleet of vehicles that they could potentially have. So part of that negotiation process was the willingness to even deliver or pick up vehicles,
Right.
and they all seem pretty open to that. So that would be something that we would work through after implementation.
That's a good point.
There has been, and we certainly appreciate Enterprise's effort in trying to keep the business in Brawley. It is, while, El Centro doesn't take hours to get to, it still is taking very limited staff resources out of city limits. So in as much as we can support our local businesses and the local economy and keep our people in town as opposed to out of city limits, it's a great benefit to all.
Is that, even if El Centro's just a few miles down the road, you're talking about an hour and a half of waste, and you multiply that with two
By two.
people. it's
To
just-
from,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's,
Time
you're
on
talking 3
task.
hours now.
Yeah.
so,
Favorable time.
I think in light of the budgetary constraints that we have in front of us, there are going to be some expectations that have to be changed and managed anyway
Mm.
within all departments.
There's a point.
Okay.
Make a motion to
Any,
approve the item.
all right, very good. That's what I was going to ask for. Thank you, Councilmember Nava. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Very good.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Enterprise.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you, finance staff, and bringing a solution, and we hope many more to come as we look at these type of programs. So we'll move on to our next item, and under regular business, item 3D. This is discussion and potential action of the City of Raleigh, City Council, Resolution Number 2019, in a matter of uniform public construction cost accounting procedures, and approve ordinance number 2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Raleigh, adding Chapter 21C to the Brawley Municipal Code for the purpose of providing informal bidding procedures under the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. Backup materials, pages 153 through 159, and I believe our city attorney bringing this forward for us.
I was asked to look into this. The state of California has this option that cities and counties can do, and that is to adopt informal bidding procedures, and it changes the dollar thresholds of when you can use your own forces for a project, and it goes from 5,000 to 60,000. So right now, traditional public contracting code is if the city has a public works job, which is painting, erecting something, repairing something, if it's going to estimate is over $5,000, it has to go out to bid, and you have to use the formal bidding procedures. If you adopt this alternative, that threshold goes up to $60,000. Every year, that threshold is evaluated by the state and adjusted for inflation. This program also allows the city to use what's called informal bidding procedures for projects up to $200,000. And the way, and in a nutshell, the way these informal bidding procedures work is the cities are required to develop a list of registered contractors. And if a job, Public Works, anybody, any department has a job that's gonna be 200,000 or less, well, they estimate it, they notify everybody on their list of registered, the city's list of registered contractors, hey, we have this job, this is what it's about, if you're interested, come pick up plans. And they give 14-day notice, and then the bids come in, as long as the bids are within that $200,000 range, and they give you a little bit more for an overbid. It's $212,000. If it comes in $212,000, then you can award it. Jobs over $200,000, you just go back to the public contract code. You do it the normal way that we've always done it. Rosanna asked me about, is there flexibility? You can go down. You can always use the formal bidding procedure. Say you think it's going to be a $150,000 job, but it's high profile and there's a lot of interest, and for whatever reason you think you ought to use the formal procedures. Well, that's your option. Go ahead.
My only question would be with respect to making sure that there is still no favoritism
Right.
in selecting. And so, you know, with disclosing bids that are coming in, dollar amounts, how would the bids, for example, let's say it's under $200,000 and you send it out to 5 different contractors locally.
We'd use the same
method.
the same
Okay.
method where you're not disclosing and shopping one party against another. The reason this request to consider a change in ordinance began was because I'm sure you've heard us lament as staff that $5,000 threshold, even if it's a relatively minor roof repair
that out real
or an
quick, yeah.
AC, it's going to take us 60 to 90 days if we can sidestep other priorities in Public Works to manage that process. So the benefit of this is it doesn't slow us down. It doesn't change the city manager signature authority. I want to be sure that I'm clear with you guys. The 15,000 signature authority per ordinance remains the same. So the council still acts as the approving entity for anything in excess of 15. It just allows us to more rapidly conclude the procurement process in a way that gets more projects through the queue. The component that relates to in-house completion of projects, I don't really see that as a concern. Our Streets and Utilities division, is extremely busy with its regular maintenance duties, but I don't see them carrying out, for instance, overlay projects
Sure.
as opposed to us outsourcing.
Yeah.
We will, 99% of the time outsource full roadway improvements.
And then each year, at a minimum, each year, the city's required to update its list of registered contractors. And the state provides a method that cities and counties must use to do that. And it's down to the point, it's down to the detail where they actually tell, if you're in Imperial County, you have to advertise in these three or four journals. And the state only puts journals in there that will accept advertising from cities and counties at no charge. And so at a minimum, every year you have to say, hey, we're looking for registered contractors. If you're interested in finding out about our bids. The other thing that's kind of neat is, say the first time we go out and advertise in these journals, say one of our big contractors that we use all the time, like A&R Construction, say they miss it. Like, hey, gosh, guys, you didn't put in. No problem. Public Works just adds them. Public Works can add to the list of registered contractors any contractors they want. They just call them up and say, hey, I need this information and put you on my list. Oh, okay. And then every job that informal procedure is going to be used, each and every contractor gets notified. Hey, that job is here. If you're interested, come pick up the package. And you can also advertise those jobs for free in these construction journals. So, and then the bid openings situation is the same. It's sealed bids, they come in and away you go. So a lot of cities throughout the state are using it.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? From
I just
council?
had a question. So is that gonna change the advertising that we normally see, like in our local newspapers when we have projects? Is that gonna create a change since you're talking about these journals?
So if we were going to use the informal procedure, then you don't have to advertise in the local paper. So if it's a relatively small job, a big job, Legion Road, you have to use the old procedures.
Sure.
Okay,
Anything over 200,000, you have to use the traditional procedure.
okay.
So this is more for the small job.
The smaller
Yeah.
contracts, okay, or projects.
Any
okay.
downfall to this?
Yeah, do you see any negatives from the contractors out here?
Well, I will say that having a slower process means it's a more thorough process.
Yeah.
But it also tests, I think, the community's patience, how long it takes to deliver projects. And sometimes when we have emergency conditions emerge, we find ourselves either in a quandary whether we need to declare an emergency to rapidly deploy, or if we're going to take the long road with the extensive timetables attached, are we going to hit the mark for conditions that we see today?
and that's more
So
expensive.
Yeah.
Could we, I guess my only concern is gonna remain until, can we just develop maybe some very simple internal controls just to make sure that the process is not abused? Whether it's by contractors or by city staff. I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
those things are covered.
The other thing it's important to remember is that cities that get involved with this program, that opt in, there's a complaint procedure where if a contractor says, hey, you know what? You guys are splitting jobs and to get them under that 60,000. So you don't have to bid them. Or you guys are calling something maintenance when it's really public works. Or you're cheating. All they have to do is notify this commission. And if you get, I think, 3 sustained complaints in a 5-year period, they boot you out.
They revoke your option to use the alternative method.
My concern is that we make sure that we have everybody on the list and that we make sure that everybody's notified. I think that's where you're going to run into your biggest complaint process is going to be, I wasn't notified. So if we're planning to not advertise and that's in a certain way or do something where we're going to notify everybody, I think it's very, very important that city staff understands they all must be notified and everybody needs to be on that list that they possibly can have on there.
So maybe one of the things that we could do is develop a proposed policy. We could bring it to the council and talk about how we'll initially establish the list, and maybe we devote significant dollars to advertising up front. If you
Yes.
want to get on this list, this is the way to do it. And
Right.
then the annual activity to refresh the list. But also noted is that even if you're not on the list, you
can
still
still
have a
be
chance
able
to
to-
be added if you miss the
Yeah, but the
window.
problem's gonna be,
Yeah.
I think you'll see, that's the biggest, I think that's one of the bigger problems you're gonna see. I wasn't notified. I'm either on the list or I'm not on the list. I wasn't notified, I wasn't given a fair chance, and then we'll run through that. Whereas with a formal bid, it's much more much more organized and much more out there to a certain extent. And whereas this may not be quite that way, we're gonna have to really keep an eye on this one, on this type of
That's
system.
important, but I do like the fact that it
Yeah.
gets the job accomplished sooner. That's important.
That's a key. Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
when I first heard about it, I thought about Mr. Couchman's concern too, and then when I looked at the method and the fact that cities can go ahead and add contractors to
You can
their
just add
list,
them.
even if
Yeah.
the contractor doesn't respond, I think clearly at the beginning, you need to just go through and see who's bid on our projects before
Right.
and tell them all, hey, we would like you to get on our list.
Yeah, the way I see it, there's actually more latitude. It's even more inclusive in and of, you can still add. So if someone felt left out, oh, we, as mentioned, just fill this out, or whatever the case may be, they could be added. Where the formal process, if someone missed something, they're out. They're out to begin with, right?
And I also think that it may open it up to more smaller contractors to be able to bid on a project, whereas they can't go through the formal process now, but they may be able to go through this informal process. It may mean that more people are qualified to bid. So I think that's important locally here for Brawley.
Kind of the thing that's also reassuring is this is not a new program in the state of California. It's been used by many cities for for a decade at least. So a lot of contractors are familiar with it. So it's not going to be, wow, Randy, what the heck are you doing, Brawley?
All right.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
It is the norm in our,
Don't say that.
El Centro
That's your
has
motion.
been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then Bill,
Okay.
we also
Okay.
advertise.
Do you have a
in
second?
Plan rooms.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Very good. We'll move to the next section, next item on the agenda, item 4, department reports. Looks like we'll have our Public Works Director for a report on the various emergency construction.
And these will be very brief since we have a city council meeting next Tuesday. We hope to go into a little more detail at that time.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. The first project, it is the status of the water treatment plant sedimentation basin components replacement project. The emergency continues on October 25th. The consultant Leon Rose sent out to the contractor comments to the launder trough. Submittal is a like a channel, or kind of a, yes, it's like 8 channels that every sedimentation basin has to conduct the water from one extreme to the other one. So those they submitted these drawings, and the contractor checked the measurements on the field to make sure that match with the chop drawings, and they need to provide revised drawings based on the field measurements. I have to say the contractor is behind the schedule, and we are requesting him to provide a reason and a revised schedule to recover the time. Any questions?
No questions? No.
Okay, moving on to the other project, the status of the pumps 422 and 423 rehabilitation of the water treatment plant. The emergency continues in the last week of October 21st. Contractor informed that after sandblasting the pump column pipe, they saw a lot of imperfections, and one of them are deep due to corrosion. The total column replacement cost $2,595 plus tax, and the alternative to that is to apply a coating with Belsona, which is a special treatment that is $750, but since it's not replacing, it will void the warranty, because they cannot warranty something that is defective. Which we have to remember that the contractor on the same job, they propose to replace some part of the pump at a savings of $5,000 per pump. So I took the liberty to allow them to do the replacement, because it's something that we don't know when it's going to happen again. So it will last a long time, and just like replacing many parts and leaving this, which is vital part of the pump, with these holes, we didn't think that is a good idea. I got the concurrence from the operations division manager and from the water plant chief, so we concur on to allow them to do the full replacement.
$2,500.
$2,595.
Yeah, okay.
Moving on to the next one, the temporal traffic cabinet. that was installed at Main Street and Cesar Chavez. The temporary signal cabinet has been working properly since October 7th, and the permanent cabinet is expected to arrive by the end of November. No issues so far, unless
Good.
the
Cool.
Very good. Any questions?
Okay.
Council? Thank you, Guillermo.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
We'll move. I'm surprised nobody dressed up. Next item, item 5, informational reports. In our backup material, page 160, are the cattle call events.
The City of Brawley calendar and our September 2019 building permits, just there for your information.
Very good. We'll announce that out and make sure the public knows where to be when. It's our time to shine, so. Just a request on my part, if there's something that council really wants to share, we'll move to item 6, which is city council reports. My suggestion, if we can hold that till our meeting on November 5th, we're getting together a little early anyways, so if that works, I have no comment.
That's
Any
fine
other
with me.
comment?
Next
We're
week.
good?
Sam had a short report, it was only 15 minutes.
I was only going to report for 35 minutes. Why you wouldn't let
We
me?
just tack it on,
But
make
that
it
doesn't
30.
mean that you take up more time next
No,
meeting.
it'll be much longer
He'll
next
need his own
time, you
meeting
realize.
For his report.
I thought he wants to get the
No, actually, I
cowboy
want to get
poetry.
done quick. I
He'll make
probably
it
won't
really
report
short.
anything.
See-
I'll
see
leave
what
it
I
till
did
the
there?
following
You
week.
have your
Yeah.
poetry.
I like
Very
the
good,
way
I
you set me
appreciate
up
it.
that way.
Jedi mind tricked you.
Threw me under the bus.
Our city manager, does our city manager have a city manager's report?
She's not
Doesn't
paying
earn a
attention.
report?
Hold
All
on.
right.
She
City
isn't.
attorney? looks like
They're there.
it.
Hey.
Okay.
You're the city manager or
city
the city
manager.
attorney have a report.
So quickly, want to let you know, Pure Grow, DTSC/Chevron will be holding, they plan and intend to hold their local community meeting at the ACC. They're tentatively targeting between, or after cattle call and before Thanksgiving. And we are expecting them to make brief presentations to the Planning Commission and possibly at our next city council meeting. So
Okay.
more information coming
Okay.
soon.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. And city attorney's report?
So, at the last council meeting, we heard from Teamsters saying they wanted fact-finding. The following day, they did make a formal request of PERB, and day before yesterday, PERB said no, too late. So that's the end of that.
All right.
Okay.
Unfortunate. All right, we'll move forward. City clerk's report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. All right, we will move to, looks like we have closed session, so we'll take a brief break. Appreciate everyone.
I think we're good.
Okay.
We're good? Can we adjourn?
All right.
All right, we'll move to adjourn. Our next meeting will be coming up Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, 4 PM. Thank you, everyone.
No close, homie.
No closed session?